It was a moment no one expected. In a nearly silent chamber, one MP stood up alone, calm, firm, and fearless. What he said next cut through the air like a blade. He didn't yell. He didn't wave his hands. He simply told the truth. And as his words echoed through Parliament, the camera slowly panned across the room, to reveal something even more shocking: not a single Labour MP was in their seat. The benches were empty. Totally empty. And that's when the public began to ask, what are they hiding? Just days ago, the House of Commons was supposed to hear one of the most powerful speeches in recent political memory. On the schedule, it looked like any other parliamentary session: debate, motions, reports. But buried in the agenda was one item that would shake the Labour leadership to its core. A backbench MP, not from the front lines of media or leadership, had quietly requested time to speak. There were no headlines. No early buzz. It looked routine. But it wasn't. This MP had come prepared with evidence. Receipts. Past statements. Voting records. And most importantly, the truth behind a promise made by Keir Starmer that, according to this MP, was knowingly broken. Not misunderstood. Not reinterpreted. Broken. And as he laid out his case, clear, steady, and damning, the gravity of the moment began to set in. The kind of speech that makes governments fall. The kind of truth people don't forget. But instead of being met with debate, pushback, or even denial, he was met with silence. Not a single Labour MP was there to defend the leader. Not one stood up to challenge the claims. Not one even bothered to show up. The cameras didn't miss it. Social media didn't miss it. And the people definitely didn't miss it. The image of empty red benches during such a serious moment sparked outrage online. "Where are they?" trended on Twitter. Some claimed it was planned, that Labour MPs were told to stay away to avoid drawing attention. Others said they were caught off guard and scrambled to avoid a scene. But the truth is, no official explanation came from the Labour Party. Just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any press statement ever could. The MP who gave the speech never raised his voice. He didn't attack Starmer personally. Instead, he did something far more dangerous: he exposed a pattern. He read out loud Starmer's own words from a year ago, word for word. Then, he read the new policy that contradicted it. He didn't offer opinion. He offered proof. And the room. Empty. It was as if the Labour Party had vanished in that moment, choosing to disappear rather than face the truth being laid out in front of the nation. This wasn't just political theater. This was real. And it raised a very serious question: if Labour MPs can't show up when truth is being told, what else are they running from? The most disturbing part wasn't what was said, it was what wasn't seen. The Labour benches were supposed to be filled with representatives of the people. MPs elected to stand up, speak up, and face the hard truths, even when it's uncomfortable. But on that day, when one of their own exposed a dangerous contradiction in Starmer's leadership, they were nowhere to be found. The red leather benches sat cold and empty, like a ghost town in the heart of British democracy. A parliament is supposed to be a battlefield of ideas, a place where lies are challenged, and truth is defended. But instead, the silence in the chamber told its own story, a story of fear, obedience, or perhaps something worse, complicity. The few voices that were present, mostly from smaller parties and independents, watched in disbelief. There was no shouting match. No interruptions. Just the sound of one MP calmly pulling apart the Labour leader's promises, while the entire frontbench and backbench Labour squad refused to show their faces. Many are now asking if the absence was accidental or strategic. Was it cowardice? Or a carefully planned retreat? Political insiders whisper that a warning may have gone out, telling Labour MPs to clear out, to avoid being seen supporting or reacting. If true, it's not just a silence, it's censorship. A deliberate decision to deny attention to a voice exposing uncomfortable truths. This is not the first time a leader has come under fire for breaking promises. What makes this moment different is the complete absence of any internal accountability. When Labour voters, millions of them, see that their own MPs can't be bothered to show up to a speech challenging Starmer's honesty, it sends a brutal message: your voice doesn't matter. Your questions won't be answered. It's no longer just about the leader. It's about the culture being built around him, and while Labour supporters across the country were left confused and disappointed, opposition voices picked up the moment and ran with it. They ran from the truth, one commentator tweeted. This is not the party of working people anymore, it's a party of silence. That tweet alone gathered over 500,000 views in hours. Screenshots of the empty benches went viral. News outlets were slow to pick it up, some completely ignored it, but the people didn't. This wasn't a story you needed a degree in politics to understand. You just needed eyes. In any democracy, showing up matters. Even if you disagree, you're supposed to face the argument. That's what Parliament is for. But when the most powerful party in opposition chooses to vanish the moment they're challenged, it makes you wonder, are they protecting the people, or just protecting themselves? It's hard to trust a party that can't even show up to defend its leader's words. Even harder when that leader's words don't match his actions. The silence of the benches was louder than any speech that day. And the public is still waiting for an explanation. So far, none has come. The brave MP who stood that day wasn't just speaking his mind, he brought evidence. Paper in hand, he exposed what many had suspected for months, that Keir Starmer had told the country one thing, but quietly acted in a completely different way. This wasn't a minor political shift. This was a direct contradiction. A promise made in front of cameras, at party conferences, in interviews. Now broken without a word of apology. What exactly was the big lie? It began with Starmer's pledge to protect key public services, especially the NHS. He stood behind podiums, staring straight into the cameras, saying, "Under my leadership, the NHS will never be touched by private hands." That line was repeated again and again. It became one of the most shared soundbites among Labour voters, especially those who feared more privatisation under Conservative rule. It gave people hope. It gave people trust, but then came the truth. Hidden inside a budget proposal and buried in policy documents was a quiet shift: funding structures that would allow private partnerships into NHS services, with less oversight. Contracts outsourced. Units managed by third-party companies. And the worst part? The language used in these documents was vague, designed to pass unnoticed by the general public. But this MP noticed. He pulled the files. He compared the speeches to the actual paperwork. And then, under the cold lights of Parliament, he read them out loud. It was undeniable. Side by side, the contradiction was clear. One line promised public protection. The other opened the door to private profit. The same leader, two faces. The people who had voted for Starmer based on his bold NHS promise were now hearing the truth, on the record, in Parliament, and without a single Labour MP there to deny it, and it didn't stop there. The MP went further, pointing out similar cases: Starmer's stance on tuition fees, which he once vowed to abolish but later dropped. His shift on worker rights, once a loud defender of union power, now more cautious and corporate-friendly. And of course, his Brexit positioning, which changed depending on the audience. One speech for the public. One policy for the elite. The MP didn't call Starmer a liar. He didn't need to. The documents spoke louder than insults ever could. Page after page, the paper trail revealed a pattern of saying one thing to the people and doing another behind closed doors. A slow betrayal, covered with polished words and vague press releases. That's what made the speech so powerful. It wasn't emotion, it was fact. The question now is, what will the public do with this truth? Will they demand answers? Will Labour supporters begin to question the man they trusted? And more importantly, if this is what was exposed in just one speech, what else is still hidden? Trust in politics is already weak. This moment shattered it even more. And while the party stayed silent, the people began to speak. Thousands of comments flooded social platforms. We were lied to. This is betrayal. I believed in Starmer, not anymore. If nothing else, this moment exposed a clear reality, underneath the smooth words and staged promises. Something much colder is happening. And this brave MP ripped the cover off for all to see. He wasn't famous. He wasn't trending. He wasn't even expected to speak that day. But after one bold speech, this lone MP became a symbol either of resistance or rebellion, depending on who you ask. While others stayed silent, he stood up and told the truth as he saw it. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult. He simply showed the facts. And that made him dangerous, the MP, whose name has now spread rapidly across political forums and social media, isn't a household figure. He's not in Labour's leadership circle, nor is he backed by corporate donors or press barons. In fact, that might be what gave him the courage to speak. He owed nothing to the powerful. He only owed the truth to the people who voted for him. And that day, he delivered it, but the aftermath wasn't easy. Within hours of the speech going viral online, strange things began to happen. The MP's official social media accounts were suddenly flooded, not with support alone, but with accusations, smears, and subtle warnings. Anonymous posts called him a traitor. Other MPs, without naming him directly, spoke in interviews about the need for party unity and the dangers of internal disruption. Party loyalists began whispering that he should be careful. No official action was taken against him, at least not yet, but the message was clear: speak out, and you're alone. Still, many began to see him as a hero. Finally, one comment read, "Someone in Parliament who speaks like a citizen, not a puppet." His clip was reposted by activists, independent journalists, and even former Labour voters who said they were done being lied to. Some called him the conscience of the party. Others warned that he'd soon face the full weight of Labour's internal machine, and yet, the MP remained silent after the speech. He didn't go on a media tour. He didn't post a follow-up tweet begging for attention. He simply disappeared back into the routine of politics, voting, attending sessions, walking the halls. But his silence only made the impact stronger. Because now, people were watching. Not just him, but how the party would treat him. Would he be pushed out? Would he be ignored until he quits? Or would this brave stand become the start of something bigger? Many believe he struck a nerve because he exposed more than a lie, he exposed a culture. A culture of obeying the party line at all costs. Of pretending everything is fine while reality crumbles underneath. And worst of all, of punishing those who tell the truth, even when the truth is necessary. This isn't the first time someone has risked their career to speak out. But in today's political climate, where image is everything and dissent is often crushed behind closed doors, it's rare. It's rare, and it's powerful. Whether the party listens or not, the people already have. The MP's words are out there. The documents are public. The video of empty Labour benches has been saved, shared, and remembered, and no matter what happens next, whether he stays or is pushed out, one thing is certain: for that one moment in Parliament, one man stood up while the rest stayed away. And he spoke not for the party, but for the truth. The moment was explosive. The evidence was undeniable. The benches were empty. And yet, mainstream media said almost nothing. No headlines. No breaking news. No primetime coverage. One of the most important political speeches of the year, exposing the contradiction at the heart of the Labour leadership, was treated like it never happened. That silence wasn't just strange, it was deliberate. While social media exploded with outrage, the press stayed quiet. It was only small, independent channels and citizen journalists who shared the video. Some platforms even flagged the footage as misleading or lacking context, despite it being a direct, uncut recording of Parliament itself. This raises a troubling question: when truth is spoken and the cameras are rolling, why is no one reporting it? It wasn't because the speech lacked substance. It wasn't because the MP was wrong. It was because what he said threatened the carefully controlled image of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. The press, which often acts as a gatekeeper for what the public sees, decided that this truth was too dangerous. And instead of challenging it, they buried it. That kind of silence is more than bias, it's betrayal. The media is supposed to hold power to account. But now, more often than not, it seems they protect the powerful and ignore those who question them. And the public? They're left in the dark. Unless you happen to be scrolling at the right moment, on the right platform, you may have missed it entirely, but the people are waking up. Every time a truth like this is ignored, more people start asking questions. Why was no one there? Why was nothing reported? Why is Starmer's leadership treated like it's above criticism? Why are brave voices inside the party being silenced? Instead of heard, this moment exposed more than a broken promise. It exposed a system that is rotting from the inside. A party that doesn't want to be challenged. A media that chooses silence over truth. And a leader who won't answer the questions that matter most. The Labour Party, once a force for working people, is now facing a crisis of trust, not from its enemies, but from its own base. This speech, and the empty benches that followed, may have seemed small. But they lit a fire. They showed us what happens when truth becomes dangerous. And what kind of silence follows when that truth threatens power. In the end, the MPs' words might fade from headlines, but they will live on in the hearts of the public. Because now we've seen the truth, a lone voice standing for the people, while the rest turned their backs to us. So ask yourself this: if they won't show up when they're being held to account, how can we trust them to show up when it truly matters?